I still remember, I was back to Barry Olafson, who was my boss, committing to a target of 100 and doing 2. In one meeting, he was frustrated. He was completely, pulled apart by our Atlanta people from Coca-Cola. And then I still remember him coming and saying, Coke calls it 3 A's of business: availability, affordability, acceptability. Coke has to be available, it has to be affordable, and it needs to be acceptable. Those were the 3 A's of Coca-Cola in those days. Those 3 A's today have become 3 P's. It's not enough to be just available, you need to be pervasive. It is not enough to be just acceptable, you need to be preferred. It's not enough to be just affordable, you need to have a price value equation. But in those days, it was 3 A's. And after getting completely pulled apart in the meeting, he stood up. He was 6 feet 6 inches. He stood up to his full height and said, guys, I made a mistake, and I will tell you what we need to be doing. It was in the Coca-Cola office in Gurgaon. I still remember that meeting. It is fresh in front of my eyes. He said, we talk about the 3 A's of Coca-Cola. In this office, is Coke available? It is. Every floor had a Coca-Cola freezer. Is Coke affordable? It is. It was free. You just had to go open the freezer and consume. Is it acceptable? We used to work in Coke, so it cannot be more acceptable to anybody else. So all the 3 A's are tick, 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 big greens. But in spite of that, the consumption of Coke was hardly there, because there was no association with any occasion. That habit was not there. And habit cannot be built in a day. Habit has to be built through consistent communication, consistent messaging, consistent investment. And therefore the targets were revised, and Coke basically went about in really focusing on driving occasions and building the association with the occasion. Coke calls it OBPPC. I'm throwing a lot of models at you: PETA model, 3A's model. It's called OBPPC: occasion, brand, pack, price, channel. They are world leaders at it. They start with which occasion are we going after? Which brand will build the association with the occasion? What is the pack? What is the price? Which channels will we bring it to life? They call it OBPPC, and it is the fundamental premise of marketing within Coca-Cola. Super. So that was a learning with Coke. And then I had the opportunity to work in Unilever, where I have spent the last 18 years before I decided to leave in December and come back to India with an ambition of trying to set off on my own entrepreneurial venture. But I will talk a bit about that later. So, and in Unilever is a master. I was telling Shashank and Sanika yesterday that Unilever is if Coke was a leader in action, Unilever was a leader in intellectual rigor. Every action has to be backed by a reason of why it is right and why you are doing it. Huge intellectual rigor. But the point I want to mention here, the big learning here, is Unilever focuses on market category creation, market development. You look at, for example, I used to work in the ice cream business. India has an ice cream per capita consumption of 10 ml or something. US has a per capita consumption of 20 liters per person. So really the headroom for growth is not getting market share from Amul or from Vadilal or from Mother Dairy. The headroom for growth is in expanding the category itself. And the way you expand category is through more users, more usage, and more occasions. Simple logic. More, penetration frequency. That is the name of the game. The name of the game in marketing is penetration and frequency. The name of the game in sales is more stores, better stores. It is simple. Keep it as simple as possible. Otherwise, you'll get overwhelmed with the challenge and the models in front of you. But the point I wanted to make here is what I learned in Unilever is the simplicity of marketing objective and communication objective. You go and talk to any brand manager, and you say, what's your marketing objective? I was surprised that they say, okay, my marketing objective is to get 20% share or 30% share. That cannot be a marketing objective. That is a measure of a marketing objective. The marketing objective has to be articulated in what is the change in behavior you're going to bring about in your target audience. What are they doing today? What do you expect them to be doing tomorrow, as a result of which your brand will the sales will increase. So what is the change in behavior that needs to be articulated? Who is your consumer? What are they doing today? What will they do? What do you want them to do tomorrow? And what are you going to communicate to them, which is your communication objective of why this change will happen. So the marketing objective and communication objective simplicity in Unilever was absolutely fantastic. You could explain that to your grandmother and she'll kind of get it. So those were some of the broad learnings that I had in these companies. I just thought I will talk a little bit about my thoughts and my beliefs, which is all crystallized into 5 bullet points. Something which I have picked up from bosses, which I have had that pleasure to, some great bosses I've had the pleasure to work with, some brilliant colleagues I've had the pleasure to interact with. The first one is there is no I have to. It's like, I hate shopping. My wife loves shopping. So whenever she asks me to come for shopping, I have a choice. I can either say no and face the consequences. But what I used to do in the past was I used to go but crib about it. The point is, it's my choice to go with her because I don't want to face the consequences. So between facing the consequences and going with her, I have made a choice. So once you have made the choice, accept it, enjoy it. A lot of people spoke about being in the now, enjoying the moment, being in the present. Everything that you do in your life is a choice that you have made. You do not blame. Don't play victim. You have made a choice. You either have the maturity to accept it or you have the gumption and the willingness to change it. So really, there is no I have to, there is always a choice. That's my first principle, and this simplified life hugely for me. So that's the first one. The second one is, again, back to being in the moment. Small acts. There are millions of interactions. What I start with saying is that can I make each interaction memorable and make it count? I don't want to I don't have a big ambition of changing the world, but I can change the world in a small way for people that I work with, for people who are, so charity begins with family, with your circle of friends, with your community, and slowly start expanding that circle of influence. For example, I take a Uber or an Ola, I pay a tip. When I was in UK, it was around 15, 20 pounds. The tip is 10 pounds. The guy looks at it, he's happy. He remembers that moment. When I go to a Starbucks, the barista gives me a coffee. The coffee is 5 euros, the tip is 5 euros. It's not big, it's not a big effort on my part, but it makes that moment a little bit more memorable. The maid who used to work in my home always gets double the market rate. So these are small acts within your circle of influence which you can do. But the big thing is, how do you constantly expand that circle of influence so you're able to impact more and more lives? That's the second one. The third one is something which my boss at one point of time used to say quite a lot. Nitin Paranjpe. 2 steps. He has this story wherein he says there were 2 friends who were caught in a dark tunnel. They couldn't see even 1 feet beyond their hand. So one of them was paralyzed. He didn't move because he can't see. The other one see, okay, I see 1 feet, let me move 1 feet. After he moves 1 feet, he sees another feet. Let me move another feet. So while the first person was paralyzed because he didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, the first person, because he saw and moved wherever he could see, he was out of the tunnel, playing a little bit of error here and there. So even when I jump into entrepreneurship, I don't have a very crystal clear plan of what I want to be doing 5 years down the line, but I know what I want to be doing next 3 months. So take 2 steps and continuously pivot. That is the third one. The fourth one, again, is Nitin Paranjpe's teaching. A not equal to R. Can anybody tell me what A is? Good one, but not the A that I have here. A is ambition. And R is resources. In a corporate life, I have been in corporate life for the last 25 years. Always there is target setting. You say, okay, your growth by 10%. Can you grow by 15? Yeah, I can, but I need more marketing money. I need 10 more people. I need 20 more people. So my ambition is constrained by the resources that I think I need to achieve that ambition. My brother is in business. He has his own startup. His ambition has got no correlation with the resources that he has. He wants to be a $1 billion company. आज खर्चा नहीं, पैसा खरीदने के लिए खर्चा नहीं है उसके पास. So he thinks big. When you think big, your passion will find a way to make the most out of the resources that you have. Don't be constrained by the resources. Think big, dream big. So A not equal to R is the fourth one. And last but not the least is unconditional performance culture, particularly for corporates when you start entering into big jobs, etc. I've seen people who always look for clever excuses why what they committed did not happen. And the more cleverer the excuse, the more brownie points he gets. Because the boss uses that clever excuse to basically to explain why he did not achieve his target. So, unconditional performance. You have said you will do this target, that is unconditional. You have to ensure that you are doing it. Coca-Cola had this. They had unconditional performance culture. People call it hire and fire. But if you perform, sky is the limit. If you don't, the door is always there. So those are the 5 beliefs, etc., which I thought I will kind of share with you. Okay, so now what I'm going to breeze through right now is COVID has taught us and the whole world the power of exponential. I was with the foods and refreshment business in Unilever. The foods and refreshment business, which is beverages, foods, and ice cream, has a huge consumption out of home, what we call as out of home channels. When you are out of home, when you are in working or in colleges or in restaurants or in leisure parks, cinemas, etc., there is a huge percentage of business that we had from these channels. Imagine 50% of our business completely stopped because there's nobody out of home. Everybody is in home. So we really had to pivot to ensure that we are able to protect our business, and it taught us that power of exponential. This is a funny figure, is the total weight of the virus that has caused this mayhem around in the market. So it's so funny that such a small, insignificant amount of weight around the world is basically caused such a big impact. The key thing here to do is never let a crisis like this go to waste. Even in this crisis, what we have seen is that the weak have been impacted. Unfortunately, the weak who had, even people who were not of good health, they were the people who were impacted. The strong have got stronger. The strong companies have got stronger because they use this opportunity to put systems in place. They use this opportunity to ensure that they cut out the waste, and they have basically ended up getting stronger. It's important to completely reinvent the business model. While the big industrial depression in 1929 was led by new industries, the recovery from COVID will be led by new technologies. And clearly we see many of this already in action. Right from online meeting, the food delivery, education, even medical care has come. I'm amazed at the progress with which medical care is going, shifting online shopping, and of course, online video streaming service. Everything. New technologies will lead this recovery. Some of the other colleagues spoke about the importance of data. Data. Everywhere there is data. It's important to really say, what is the business problem you want to solve? And what data do you need to solve that business problem? Otherwise, we will get overwhelmed with data. We have to look at data in the context of what data we need to solve the business issue that we have identified. So huge data. Digitization I spoke about. Gone are the days when people moved around with a laptop, with a tape recorder, with phones, etc. Everything, wallet and phones, etc. Everything is now stuck into one small phone. You have your phone with you, and you don't need anything else. So digitization huge, and delivery experiences. 1 hour delivery used to be a thing of the past. Nowadays, 10 minutes delivery. I'm waiting for the day when somebody will deliver to me even before I actually want the product, saying, sir, in 2 minutes you will want it, here it is ready for you. So clearly the future is triple D. What I'm going to leave with you here now, before I finish and open it up for questions, is what I thought I will put here is 8 trends which will be important for you to keep in mind as you shape the progress and future of your brand. All these are mostly FMCG focused, so pardon me for people who are in a durable sector. The first one is local love. Whether it is local tourism, suddenly rediscovering local places to visit, whether it is local neighborhood grocers, you see a trend across the world that local communities and local channels are increasingly becoming more and more relevant. So therefore, convenience channel and fragmented mom and pop stores will be absolutely important as we progress into the future. Holistic health, beyond just physical health, mental health, spiritual health. In fact, my business idea is actually going to be around this particular piece. So brands has to basically answer this question: what are they doing to better, not just health from a physical health perspective, but holistic health? Life hacking. The number of how-to videos search in YouTube has increased exponentially. How to cook, how to fix a broken table, how to fix my leaking tap. The number of how-to videos have increased dramatically. So life hacking, what does your brand do to impact and make the life of the consumer a little bit easier? So life hacking is a third big trend. Pleasure starved. For the last 2 years, I used to be a big shopaholic. Remember I told you I hated shopping? For the last 20 years, accompanying my wife while she is doing, I have now converted to becoming a shopaholic. But now, last 2 years, I have not purchased any clothes. I'm waiting now. I'm waiting with a revenge to go out, do some shopping, and also go out and visit some new places. So you are going to see revenge spending the minute people are going to come out of this COVID. Virtualities. While the V for vaccine and the V for virus has been a big thing in the past, the virtual reality and virtual usage of virtual technologies, including VR, is going to be a big trend for the future. I don't know how many of you have seen the Lost Horizon Music Festival. Google it. It is a virtual music festival. Look at the audience which participated in that virtual music festival. Huge. Just Google it and find out. Lost Horizon. Experiences. Out of home, I spoke about out of home channels. Out of home always used to be experiences that you get when you go out of home. Ben & Jerry parlors, Magnum pleasure stores, huge outside real estate locations wherein you get an experience that you can't get when you're in home. In home used to be routine and experiences used to be out of home. Now you see people want to bring the out of home experience in home. Whether it is getting a real chef in home, whether it is doing up in-home loungewear, or forget for the in-home entertainment itself, there is going to be a huge, huge trend to really driving out-of-home experiences, but brought in-home as well. One of the participants spoke about sustainability, circular economy. One of the beautiful things of working with Coke was they had a returnable glass bottle. So that glass bottle was used 8-9 times. Before it was disposed of. So the circular economy and brands, their contribution to what they are doing to be a part of this is going to be an important thing. And last but not the least, is there is an increasing trend towards plant power. Whether not just food, because you see meat substitutes, plant-based products, etc., being a big trend in the West. But not just food, even in beauty, personal care, home care. Plant-based products are going to be increasingly relevant and increasingly, growth-oriented for the future. So those were, some of the trends that I thought I will kind of leave you with. I'm going to just skip through this and then end my presentation with this message. The world's biggest problems are the world's biggest opportunities. And we have a room full of bright young minds who are going to be focusing on solving these biggest problems and convert those into opportunities. Thank you very much. And now we open it up for any questions.
Before I ask before I ask them to ask some question, thank you so much, PK sir. Your address was full of some interesting concept, and you spoke about them in such a simplistic manner that we all could relate to it and we all could understand. You talked about PETA model, the transition of 3 A's to 3 P's as far as Coca-Cola is concerned, and taking example of Unilever, you simplified the idea of marketing objective for us. And lastly, the 8 trends to watch out for. At a psychological level, also, you touched us when you spoke and told us that everything in life happens twice, once in dream and once in reality. So, dream big. And another thing that you said was don't be constrained by the resources. That again propel us to dream big. Everything that you do in life is a choice that you have made, so don't crib about it. On that note, thank you so much, sir. Now we open the floor for questions. Students, do I have anybody who has any question? You could raise your hand and we'll get the mic passed on to you.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning, sir. All the dignitaries present and my fellow Indrites. Uh, Thank you so much for coming here and bestowing us with your presence. My question to you is about Indian businesses going global. So you have worked with, you have been associated with companies like Coca-Cola and Unilever. So what I want to know is, what should Indian businesses do uh, to get more and more global recognition? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
More and more global reputation, you said.
Recognition, ma'am.
Recognition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great question. In fact, a close friend of mine has just joined Godrej with exactly that mandate in mind to take Godrej's considerable presence here in India and make that a global brand to reckon with. I think, first of all, we are very fortunate, like like China, Brazil, that we have a huge home market. We don't really need, let me begin with that, we don't really need to look beyond our own country to really create a sizable impact and a sizable business. Unlike countries which are small countries like Singapore, etc., where the local market is so small that you have to willingly be global right from the beginning. We are blessed with the fact that there is a big opportunity here within our own country to go with. On the second point, of course, I always say this, there was a ex-Unilever guy, Arun Adhikari, who used to say, think big, start small, and these two things everybody does. Everybody does think big, they also start small. But the critical importance is roll out fast. That's the third part. So once you have got a proven model, a concept which works, because you have started small, you have learned from it, then your ambition and your appetite for action is the limit. Your appetite for risk and appetite for action is the limit. You have got a proven model. What is preventing you from taking it into more markets? Nothing. So really think big, start small, but then once you have got a proven model, focus on really rolling it out fast. And we see there is a big opportunity for established Indian brands which have got a big presence in Indian market to do that, to roll out fast into at least like-minded countries in Asia to begin with. I must also say, it is not that those countries don't have established players. So, having had the opportunity to work in Unilever, you look at multiple geographies, multiple opportunities, but then you have to be razor sharp focused on which opportunity you will put your money behind, because investment is needed. So you really need to identify and be sharply focused on opportunities where you have market attractiveness, but you also have the right to win. Just because there is a big market in Brazil doesn't mean that Unilever can go there, because there is an established competitor there. The price of entry is going to be brutal. So you look at market attractiveness and the ability to win and use that to really focus on which geographies you will go after, where the market is attractive and you believe you have the right to win. So one is more attitudinal, which is rolling out fast. The second is more left brain, which is ability and a honest question that you will have to answer for yourself to say whether you really have the right to win in that market.
Thank you, sir. That's a very fresh thumbs up from his side. Okay, that's a very fresh perspective that we have enough opportunities in our country itself. But if we want to go and venture out and want to broaden our horizon, there is nothing that is stopping us. All that you need to do is think big, start small, and roll out fast. Thank you, sir. Do I have any other question? Okay, we have somebody here. Could you please pass on the mic to her, please? Okay, it got passed on to a him. We'll come back to you later. Okay, ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon to all the dignitaries, faculties, and to all those who are present here. A very good afternoon. Sir, my name is Krutil, and thank you very much for sharing your learnings with us. And my question to you is, what are the most influencing factors for a customer? Is it the brand or the product quality or the marketing campaigns?
That's a great question because, again, you try and simplify it to saying, okay, is there awareness? Is the awareness converted to trial? And is the trial converted to repeat? Simple. Those are the three things that you have to look at. You have to say, okay, I'm launching a product. How many people do I make aware of the product? And then say, are the people who are aware starting to consume the product? And then you say, okay, people who are aware but not consuming, you say, why are they not consuming? You really have to ask yourself, why? The first thing I will say is product. If you don't have a winning product, you can kiss everything goodbye. So really, I put a lot of emphasis on, do you have the great product, and then do you have the right concept, and then you have the right communication. Again, back to the simplicity of what is the change in behavior you're looking at to bring about. Is that sharply identified, or is it wishful thinking? Let me tell you, we have a very simple, again back to the ice cream example. We say India इतना बड़ा desert country है, खाने के बाद ice cream क्यों नहीं खाते? Desert बनाओ, ठीक है, अच्छा है. तो habit, तो marketing objective ये है कि आज मिसेस कमला जो है, वो खाने के बाद रसगुल्ला खाती है, उसको आइसक्रीम खिलाना है. तो क्या communicate करोगे उसको? What are you going to communicate to her? That entire flow has to be crystal clear. So, I would basically say, get your product right, get a sharpness of your marketing objective, which is linked to the change in behavior, and be sharp about communicating the one USP which will make that change in behavior happen. So those are the three. I'm not a big fan of of course, the marketeers here will scoff at me. I'm not a big fan of emotional branding. मतलब, अगर product का value 2 है, बिकॉज हम इमोशनल ब्रांडिंग कर रहे हैं और उसको प्रीमियम बढ़ रहे हैं, उसको 10 में बेचो. प्रोडक्ट का वैल्यू 2 है, थोड़ा ब्रांड का वैल्यू रखो, बट लेकिन उसको डोंट प्लीज द कंज्यूमर इन सच अ वे दैट द कंज्यूमर एंड्स अप पेइंग सो लिटिल फॉर द एक्चुअल प्रोडक्ट दैट ही और शी इज कंज्यूमिंग. सो दैट विल बी माय टेक ऑन दिस.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. That was a very simple answer to a seemingly complex question. All that you need to have is a winning product or belief in your product, and right communication highlight that one USP that you have. Thank you, sir. Maybe one more, yes.
Good morning. My name is Shabnam. Great talk. Thank you so much for that. In your presentation, you talked about the 3 Ds of the future: digitalization, data, and delivery. And obviously, these things are much effectively done by technology. So, in your opinion, do you think there is a scope of artificial intelligence taking over human intelligence because these things are so much better than us?
I think it's a great question. My last 2 years in my role was spent exactly on this. Again, I told you that, I like the ice creams category, so my example is all ice cream. You would have seen those freezers, right? So the ice cream business has distributors who go and call on the outlet once a week. They look into the freezer and then they take the orders. The cost to serve is huge in ice cream because frozen distribution. Every week the outlet has to be visited, the cabinet has to be merchandised. What we did is we bought in what we call as the IoT, which is artificial intelligence, where we placed a camera, GoldenEye. Project was called GoldenEye. It takes an image of the stock in the cabinet, and it will tell you what product needs to be stocked. The cabinet has to be stocked. We eliminated the need for a guy to go to the outlet. He used to go once a week. Now he goes once a month. But it is important to understand that you need to back artificial intelligence with human touch. It cannot substitute. You don't need to have intensive human touch, but you need to have that human element. Artificial intelligence and digitization backed by human emotional touch and connect is the model. One cannot substitute the other. This model that we spoke about reduced our cost to serve by almost 50%. So we had 3,000 people going on the street. Now we need to have much lesser people, but better service. Because we used to go and call 100 outlets, only 30 outlets are productive. Now those 30 outlets will place an order which we receive, and our distributors get the link on what products they need to service. They distribute that. The calls are 100% productive. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So artificial intelligence need to be backed by human touch. Thank you, sir. Sure, sir. So Pandit Mali, sir, he is director of Indira Institute of Management, Pune.
So Unilever and Procter and Gamble, they are very well known for their processes of understanding the customer, how they spend the time with the customer and how they come out with their products. So if you can throw some light and taking reference of one or two of the products of Unilever, that will be great for the students.
Yeah, the consumer intimacy is absolutely essential. For example, we have consumer connects, wherein we go and visit the consumer in their home. We go and visit the teenagers in the different channels, and really get to understand what their aspirations are. In fact, I can share it with Ms. Arpana later. There is a simple set of 10 questions. It will be very useful for you. Those 10 questions you ask, you will get to know what are the aspirations of your target audience. You ask those 10 questions. In fact, even engagement-wise, I use it normally even in social engagements and interaction. वो 10 question पूछेगा, you will neatly know what is the aspiration of the person. So, customer and consumer intimacy, and this is consumer intimacy. But I also tell you one thing which we don't do very often in corporates, which is customer intimacy, channels. Because today the channels are evolving so much. A convenience store which is situated in a residential locality behaves very different from a convenience store situated in a CBD locality. So the ability to also engage with multiple channels, chemists, traditional trade channels, modern trade channels, to spend time with them to understand what their needs are and build that customer insights and shopper insights is absolutely critical. So consumer intimacy, at least 100 hours of engagement with the consumer, every year is a mandate in Unilever. Similarly, 100 years of time spent with the customers is a mandate for everybody. Whether you are in sales or marketing, that needs to be done, and that customer and consumer centricity need to be brought in. Again, back to the example which I said about, ice cream with food as a dessert. We have cracked the code now. Not in India, still a challenge, but particularly in Europe. Because we use the delivery providers where you go on, you deliver food, and then there is a consistent campaign that we have which links as you have ordered food and you're about to exit, there is a checkout filter which comes in and say, okay, would you like to add a scoop of ice cream to your order? Now, a simple insight of engaging with the customer has given us this huge opportunity. Because we said, they couldn't distribute frozen products because they didn't have the capacity to distribute it. We had the knowledge of how the frozen distribution. So we developed a simple model where they could use our frozen distribution mechanism to distribute it to the consumers. And through that partnership, we now are able to build the habit of ice cream as a dessert after food. It's a huge, huge unlock. So this comes only because you have spent time with the customer, understood their insights, spent time with the consumers, and understand their insights. So that intimacy is got to be spent with the respective audience.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Consumer intimacy, customer intimacy, understand what their aspiration and needs are, and HUL, 100 hours of engagement with every customer. No wonder HUL is what it is. Yes, sir.
Thank you. An excellent question and excellent answer since you mentioned Unilever and P&G. So I spent my first 15 years at P&G. Yeah. So I thought I'll just add one insight also. I think just to add to what PK said, re-articulating one thing which he said was, there are articulated things and there are unarticulated things. So getting real consumer or customer insight also comes from unarticulated things. And how you get that is by going and being in the home of the consumer. So I used to handle brands like Tide and Ariel, which are detergents. So going and living with the consumer, seeing them actually washing clothes, not talking to them, just seeing and them asking some questions. Similarly, like you mentioned about customers, going to the stores, just sitting there and seeing how a consumer comes, how they buy, how does the retailer talk to them, and observing them. So apart from asking questions, going there, if you just observe, it gives you huge amount of insights. That's another way of driving customer and consumer intimacy.
Well said, well said.
Thank you so much, sir. That was cherry on the cake. So don't just capture what is articulated, do also capture what is unarticulated. Go visit your customers, see how they live, how they behave. Do remember this, the future marketers, this is a very, very important insight for you all. On that note, thank you so much, sir. PK sir, a huge round of applause.
Thank you.
Absolutely loved listening to you, sir.
Thank you. And please, when my venture gets off, I would like to have bright minds like you come and join it. Please, look forward to that. Thank you.